We're back here live with the Prince of Investment, coming to you guys and girls live all the way from the beautiful city and state of Denver, Colorado. Coming to you guys live via Honolulu, Hawaii. Beautiful state of Denver, Colorado via Honolulu, Hawaii. Sometimes I get mixed up, but here we're back. Now we're going to talk about we earlier we talked about at the beginning of the show before the break. We talked about inflation, what it was, how it started, what induced this high inflation that we're currently experiencing, and what the Federal Reserve is talking about doing to combat that inflation. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty. The report that came out today, February 10th, today at 8:30 a.m. East Coast time, about 6 hours ago, something like that. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight down into it. This is the Consumer Price Index. The Consumer Price Index, they're saying that inflation in January rose by 0.6% in January on a seasonal adjusted basis. Now, 0.6 over the last over the last 10 months, this is the seventh time over the last 10 months, inflation has raised by 0.5%. That means that every month for the last 7 months, inflation has raised by 0.5%. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at 7.5% inflation. Now that we are at 7.5% inflation, this means that we will be in a double digits if we keep on this pace. In February, if we hit 0.5, in March we hit 0.5, in April, in May, in June, and July, you can do the math and say the pace we're on. In January, we rose by 0.06 on inflation. Now let's talk about the areas that got hit the most. The highest, the increase of indexes for food, energy, food, energy, and shelter were the largest contributors to seasonal adjusted all items increases. The food index rose by 0.9 in January, following a 0.5% increase in December. The energy index increased by 0.9% over the month, with the increase in the electricity index being partially offset by the declines in gasoline index and the natural gas index. The index for all items, less food, energy, rose by 0.6% in January. Now, here we go. Let's go down here. Let's see who had the highest inflation rate. We can look here and see coming in January, the person that had the sector that had the highest inflation at 9.5. Get that 9.5. 9.5% is fuel oil. Why is this important? If inflation is at 7.5%, what is the average savings account? The average savings account in America in 2021 was 0.06. 0.06, not 0.6. Inflation for January was 0.6. Inflation overall is 7.5. Annually, the average savings account is getting 0.06. It doesn't take a mathematician to say if my savings account is getting 0.6, but my investment account is getting not investment account, if my savings account is getting 0.6 and inflation is at 7.5, you're actually losing money. You're losing about 7% a year with the current inflation rate if it stays at what it's at now. So investing is not an option. At 7.5%, and inflation at 0.06%, investing is not optional. It's invest or lose right now. Very big when you come down to the inflationary marks. So the number one place was 9.5%. That came from fuel oil. Now we know historically we got things going overseas, and we have things going on overseas. This usually in the Middle East, especially with the Ukraine and Russia deal, if things go down over there, usually oil prices go high. I mean extremely high, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm anticipating a high energy run up. I talked to some of my old school friends, come from the 70s and the 80s, and asked them, living in a high inflationary environment, what went up? We've seen fuel oil, and we're seeing that right now, 9.5%. We're feeling it at the pump. This is called invisible tax. This is the tax that's not taken out of your check. It's not taken out of your bank account. This tax is taken from your this tax is taken when you go to buy the price of your clothes, your shoes, your food, things you don't realize. This is where your money is going. This is called purchasing power. You have $1. How powerful is that dollar? The dollar is becoming weaker, ladies and gentlemen, as inflation goes higher. It's the invisible tax. It's the tax on your money that you can't see. You go to the grocery store, you spend $200. You look down at your bag and say, man, $200, where? That's inflation. But if you go back years ago, you'll see how much you could have brought. So let's take a little further look. Who had the lowest inflation in January? January, the person had the lowest inflation in the sector. We're looking at it here. It's at a 0.5, no, 0.3%. I'm sorry, a negative 0.5 was utility piped gas. Utility piped gas actually went down. Good. But fuel oil went up. Piped gas services went down, which is pretty good to say. Now, looking at this, also coming in number 2 was electricity. Electricity and utilities are one of those things that I don't shop around my electricity bill. You just move to an area, whatever bill they give you, if they say you charged it and you did it, then you just did it. That was it, ladies and gentlemen. So you have to think about this. When we have fuel oil, we have prices of gas going up. What's happening? What's going on in the world? 7.5%. Let's take a look and see a little bit more here. The food index increased by 0.9 that we already talked about. The food away from home rose by 0.7. We got energy at 0.9. All items less energy, this is the number that everybody tracks. This came in, it rose by 0.6%. That's higher than the average savings account in 1 month alone in January. So bringing everybody up to 7.5. The shelter index increased by 0.3% as well. The medical care index rose by 0.7% in January. The index for hospital services increased by 0.5%, and the index for prescription drugs rose by 1.3%, while the index for physician services declined by 0.1%. Only a few indexes decreased in January. Let's talk about the ones who didn't increase. Only a few indexes decreased in January. Among those that did, that were lodging away from home. Lodging away from home, like hotels. I think hotels are on a decline anyway. Lodging away from home is at a negative 3.9%. And wireless telephone services, they went down by 0.1%. The index for new car index, the new vehicles, was unchanged over the month. So new vehicles stayed the same. You saw lodging away from home, aka hotels, and cell phone services actually decreased. Pretty interesting. These are things I can't live without. I have to have my phone. I have to have electricity. So I don't really get a chance to like, oh, you know what? Let me shop around for my electricity unless I just went green and got panels on my house. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude today's episode. Hopefully you guys and girls got something out of this episode, talking about reviewing from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.gov, going over the consumer price index that affects us every day. We saw that fuel oil went up 9.5% alone in January. And we saw that the declines in lodging and new cars stayed the same. And what was the other index? That was cell phones. Cell phones actually decreased. So cell phones decreased, hotels decreased, and new cars. Fuel oil, the highest. Gas actually kind of went down a little bit, but not a whole lot. But a lot of things going on. Now we have to stand by. When we see inflation go up, we've seen the market dump a little bit. So that's something to keep an eye on. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, inflation is at 7.5%. My name is Prince Dykes. This is the Prince of Investment. And to the next video, podcast, cartoon, book, or whatever else crazy you see me do across the road, across the globe, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, comment, and share button. Peace, be safe, I'm out, and thank you.